Hey everyone, how's it going? I just saw episode 5 of WandaVision and I'm going to quickly hop on here to give you my first thoughts and discuss a little bit as we summarize and run through the episode. First off, before we get started as well, apologize for the change of scenery, but here we go. We're going to start off giving you all like a quick review without any spoilers before we hop into the summary with spoilers, and then we'll wrap it up. So, hopefully you guys know there's an obviously spoiler warning for episodes 1 to 5, not for episode 6. This is episode 6, spoiler free. There were a lot of comic tie-ins this episode and fun Easter eggs, which I really enjoyed. They nailed the decade. I loved it personally out of all of them. I loved this style the best. Not exactly the episode. I mean, it was a good episode. Amazing episode. The theme song was amazing. You could tell there was obviously like so much Malcolm in the Middle influence. They really got to developing Tommy and Billy's characters more, and that was amazing. Wanda, we see here, she really shines as a great mom. I love Wanda as a mom. I hope she gets to keep her kids after this. The trio shines. The sword trio. Vision, his character, great here. Nothing really has compared yet to his acting at the end of the last episode, but great. He's been doing great this episode. Catherine Hahn, amazing actress. And then finally, to give this episode a bit of a rating, it was very good. Not as good as some other ones, but a great example of this show. Stick around to the end of the episode for my actual rating of the whole thing. Now let's get to summarizing the whole thing, so be warned, spoiler warnings for episode 6 of WandaVision. Okay, let's jump into it. Starting at the beginning, we had Agnes and Pietro in the theme song, which we hadn't had before. Maybe they just wanted to fit in more people to match the style of the theme song. Either way, it was interesting. I know Pietro really was in here, but Agnes kind of wasn't. So it just got me wondering a bit as to her importance in the series. Next, I think there was some, at least for people who read the comics or know other media, there was some, at least to me, pretty obvious queer coding in Billy's character. And I believe Tommy has kissed boys before in Marvel Comics as well. But Billy is known to be the gayer one, at least the one who's had a bit more relationships and more developed character as well. Well, I think Billy might be full-on gay. Maybe Tommy's bisexual. I don't know exactly. But you see, he's the Dorkosaurus Rex, and he doesn't all fit in. He's not as cool as Tommy, and Pietro, he plays it safe more often. He's a geek, whatever. That, I think the queer coding is great because he and maybe Tommy are first queer superheroes, which I'm really loving. Next, we get comic accurate costumes for everyone except for Tommy, and even Tommy, he has super speed in the comics, so maybe his costume, well, I don't know. But assuming he sticks along, I'd like to see a change because even his is pretty similar to that, but it's not as blue. It's obviously mocking Pietro's because he's a big fan of his uncle Pietro. Speaking of Pietro, I am loving Evan Peters' character because it's like Uncle P, whatever, which is interesting because nobody ever calls him Pietro except for Wanda at the end of the last episode. Like in the Fox one, he's more like Peter. Just a quick interesting detail, as we'll talk more about the theme of that later as we go through this. They played off basically all the costumes except for the twin and Evan Peters, which is mainly just Wanda and Vision's. But Wanda was like a Sokovian fortune teller, and Vision was like a macho libre kind of wrestler guy. But as anyone with a brain knows that they were just referencing the comic outfits, and I loved it. the Wiccan, the Quicksilver, great moments. They mixed up like this. This is like something that I'd love to talk about. With that doesn't have to do too much with theories, which I do 3 episodes for after this on Tuesdays. But they mixed up the stories between Evan Peters and Wanda. This whole episode, they're like trying to remember their childhood, lots of trauma. They say, as especially you hear Evan Peters' character say that, but. Wanda knows that he looks different, and Evan Peters' character mentioned that later. So it's which means it's also acknowledging that if he knows he looks different, is that acknowledging that he's separate from Aaron Taylor Johnson? That was a big thing, and we'll get back to that later. Vision goes to the neighborhood watch. I love talking to the camera style, especially as we start getting into that in the 90s, and we will get into that next episode. So good, so good, so good. I don't know, I just love that style of television, personally. It just, in sitcoms, it's great. And then, we get back to Sword, and Hayward, we started to hate him last episode, and even I started to hate him in the 4th episode, but now we get to see people call him bastard, whatever. He's just a douchey ass hat, and I mean the actor's great because I doubt the actor could ever be like that. But they call him a coward, and then he fires the trio, and then they go undercover, and Hayward's overstepping his job. He has a bigger plan behind this, and we're not really sure what that is. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my theories episode on Tuesday, so stick around. I'll probably have a link in the description once it comes out. Jimmy, after that, when they start going undercover, Jimmy Woo and Monica Rambeau are so badass, especially since Jimmy Woo, he takes the first punch. Oh my god, I adore it. It's so great. I love the character development we're getting. This episode was truly an episode for the characters. It shined more in the characters than the plot did itself. It was a nice plot, but it was a great episode for characters and their development. Evan Peters, we start getting more hints, especially as he gets more screen time, that he's obviously from Fox, no question, especially with the different personality, or else he'd just be saying, didn't see that coming, didn't see that coming, didn't see that coming. And the way that his speed trail is, we keep thinking that, and memories that he has, obviously from Fox, but there's some things that cancel that out later and get you thinking that this could be a combined version, and we'll talk about that later in the episode, so stay tuned. And he's as they're walking through the neighborhood, I know I look different. Maybe it's because you don't want to remember the past, and that's okay, whatever. And then he says kick-ass. There's a little bit of a quote. It's great because Aaron Taylor Johnson and Evan Peters were both in Kick-Ass. And that kind of... it's great because they're paying homage to Aaron Taylor Johnson because they were both in that, especially. So I don't think he would have said that if Aaron Taylor Johnson wasn't in Kick-Ass, especially. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson played a larger role in Kick-Ass than Evan Peters. I haven't seen it. Actually, I know. Maybe I'll put a review up later after I watch it. But Vision, through her, we know that. And we kind of got this hint that Vision's not actually doing Neighborhood Watch. But then, as we're talking to Herb knows as much as Agnes does. At the beginning of last episode when Agnes was like, "You want to do that again?" Herb asks Wanda, "Do you want anything changed?" That sends chills, because it felt like Agnes, they gave more hints to Agatha Harkness, and she still could be, especially with the witch costume we see at the end of the episode. But we get hints that he knows as much as Agnes when he says you want that change, and I think that's great because maybe everyone does, and it's like part of the real person is underlying their character that they're playing in this, which is very interesting and that could be talked about forever. I love this show. Because, you think, like, how many of the residents know that this is whatever, like, the special reality without Vision's glowy fingers, like Herb and Agnes. And then as Vision starts to walk to the edge of town, start seeing what's up without Wanda, he sees this, like, crying woman who's, like, hanging her thing, like, repeatedly, and it's weird, and she has a tear rolling down her face, like, almost like she could be imprisoned, I'd say, definitely. And it's such a great episode, I tell you, such a great episode. We don't know why she's crying. I don't have too much thoughts about that, but then we get to the commercial. Yo Magic is the yogurt, like Yo Play, and he's like, it helps you survive, and then it gets really creepy. Like, this is the creepiest commercial yet, besides, I'd say, probably the bomb one. This is like as creepy as the bomb one, because that, like, takes too long. He can't eat the yogurt, and he doesn't survive, and he starts decaying over time on this island, and it's so weird. But I think this is our second form of animation in the show, because it was this and the Bewitched theme. It's cool how this, the Bewitched theme, and then we're gonna have What If, very different styles of animation, because especially, What If's gonna be more professional, like, to tell an actual story. But interesting how now the MCU is finding ways to integrate animation, which is, I think, super cool. But anyways, let's get going. And I think there's a big theme that we can get from that one with Wanda's magic. It kind of traumatized her in ways, especially when we see, like, the Lagos thing, but whatever. But I think there's also a theme that goes along with that I'll talk about in the theories episode. And then in the cinema, we see Disney movies like Incredibles and The Parent Trap from the 90s. Different years, which is interesting because they shouldn't be there because different years, whatever, but maybe it's just an Easter egg. I'll play it off as an Easter egg for now. But it's weird that they're in the MCU. They both realize, like, wait, why don't you have your accent? And then he is like, lists off the reasons that he's here. Like, oh, to give you grief. I mean, that's what you wanted, right? Which is really weird because the more he mentions like grief and trauma, it's like he knows the themes of this show. Interesting. He's like, and then this is where we get especially into the theories that he could be a combination of the Fox Quicksilver and the MCU Quicksilver, because he says, I was shot in the middle of the street for no reason. I love how he throws in the no reason part, because, like, tons of fans argue this, that, like, no reason that he died there, and it's kind of them throwing shade at Joss Whedon's death for a second, but I digress. And I heard you called for me, so I came. And this really reminds me of, I think it was like Peter Parker or Spider-Man in Endgame, talking about how 1 minute he's snapped, he's dusted, and the next minute Doctor Strange comes through the portal and asks him to fight. And so this really makes me think that, like, he is not exactly Fox one, but a combination, which would then make our theories of the multiverse even skewered. But he's gotta be some part of the... Maybe the MCU multiverse rules work a different way than they would otherwise, but once again, I digress. We'll put that in the theories video. So again, that would make us infer that he has been resurrected by Wanda. We don't know. But then we see the boys start developing powers. Tommy first. I think he was first born. I forget. Maybe he was second, but he got his powers first, anyways. And then we see we go switch back to Sword. Hayward found a way to look through the hex, and we see the people on the other side. But he kept it to himself, and this makes us like really see like that he's kind of villainous because he's keeping things to himself. Like, what's he hiding? Darcy, is like, oh, it's tracking vibranium decay. So, Vision's made out of vibranium and it's decaying. Why is that? I'm not sure. But Hayward's tracking it. And then Jimmy Woo points out that people aren't really moving by the edge of town. Are they dead? I don't think so. Maybe it's because Wanda somehow talk about theories. As we get closer to the end of the episode, we raise more questions, and those will be answered, talked about more at length in the theories episode on Tuesday. But there, then Vision, as Jimmy Woo talks about that, Vision then gets the one cul-de-sac where people just aren't moving, and that Vision's like the only one really acting there, but that scene is shot so well. I love it. It was such a great scene. Then he changes into a superhero, guys, which is interesting because when he's changed from human vision to synthesoid vision, he's always like dressed up for Wanda in those clothes, but now he's actually finally get to change into a superhero clothes for the first time in the series. Just like we saw Wanda in the last episode go through the barrier in her superhero outfit. So he finds Agnes in a car stalled at the end of the thing. Maybe it stopped moving because as you get closer to the edge of the hex, it stops moving, whatever. And this is where I say Catherine Hahn really shines. So it's really creepy. She still functions. No one else there in the cul-de-sac really talks, but she's still able to like kind of make some words out. Maybe that's just because she's just different. Maybe it's just random, but I'm not sure. Then she mentions the Avengers. Vision doesn't know who the Avengers are, but he's literally been a member of one since Age of Ultron, which is like 8 years. In that time, 5 years and hours. And she screams like dead 5 times and she's like, "You're dead." Vision doesn't know he's dead either. He learns this for the first time. Maybe he'll confront Wanda about this, maybe he won't because he saw what happened last time. But then he tries to escape. He's on his way to escape. But she says no one leaves. She does this manic witch laughter in the costume, which really like the 1 + 1 = 2, right? More hint towards Agatha Harkness. It's really weird. But then he goes past Ellis, which maybe he heard Wanda said to Tommy and Billy because they finished her sentence for her. They're like, "Oh, we know, don't go past Ellis." So then before Jimmy and Monica are about to go in or get their ride in, there's more Photon/Monica hero foreshadowing, and Monica keeps mentioning this neurospace engineer or whatever, but more references to Monica getting powers, which is really cool. But Darcy's like, "You're not well. There's energy that's changing your cells." Wanda like plays it off really cool. I had some theories about Monica being like followed in the beginning that she mentioned in the 4th episode, but maybe it's she's getting powers now. That'd be cool because it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. But how does it give her light powers? Energy powers? Maybe. But she uses it for light, which is weird. Maybe that's just she likes the Captain Marvel aesthetic. We'll see. Maybe she gets in the finale, leads into Captain Marvel too. That's a theory. Could have talked about in the theories episode. Whatever. There's But like, Darcy stays to find something inside Hayward's firewall. He's hiding something big, we know. Wanda and Pietro are referencing a lot to their mom and dad in this episode. I mean, I know that's what they bond over, but it's getting kind of sus where, like, I feel like the directors, the writers are trying to tell us something that maybe Magneto will show up later. I don't know. I hope so. But Pietro actually is one of the few residents, is the only resident besides Wanda that knows fully what's happening. Vision doesn't know exactly, he's trying to piece that together, but Pietro actually knows what's happening. But Wanda's okay with that. And Pietro's cool with what she's doing, unlike Vision. He's like, you're kind of making it ethical with the families and couples together, similar personalities, better jobs. How does he know that? This makes us think he could also just be a thing of the imagination, which is the most likely thing, especially with the combination of Fox and MCU Pietro theories, that the Fox part just be like in there for fans, fan service. Yes. Oh, how did you do it? That's the question we've been all wondering. Every single fan has been wondering, how did you do it? She said she doesn't know, and you see, Wanda. Elizabeth Olsen is such a great actor, and here we can tell Wanda is telling the truth. She doesn't know how she did it, which means she could have definitely had someone help her, or maybe she had memory loss with that. It's kind of weird, I don't know. But then she sees zombified Pietro, just like Vision in the end of episode 4. So I have two different things with this. If he is truly fully the X-Men version from the Fox Earth, if he is, if that's who Evan Peters is, then, like, from multiverse, from a portal, whatever, that would infer that Vision is alive and Wanda is just having PTSD from losing them. But if it's a different version, in some way, shape, or form combined with the MCU, if he's just a figment of the imagination, which I doubt, then it's all just been hallucination, and I would hate that to happen. But if he's like a combined version, or a different MCU version, or a resurrected Pietro that just looks different because she wants him to, then the unfortunate thing is, that means Vision and Pietro are probably both dead bodies, and I don't want that to happen. I don't know. I guess we hope that he's the X-Men version. Hayward, at the end of the episode, just gets more and more and more and more of a villain. He started to establish himself as a villain, just like every other sword, shield person in the ranks. He's being sneaky, just with everyone, and I don't like it. Bad vibes. When Vision tries to exit, the barrier won't let it. He starts deteriorating, and Darcy goes to Vision. Maybe she got the thing on the firewall. Hopefully we'll find out next episode. Maybe, but we don't even know because of what happens next. She tries to help him out. She's like, why are you guys helping? She's handcuffed to one of the tanks or whatever. And it's so weird because Vision, unlike Wanda, never terrorized anybody. I don't know. Billy goes to alert Wanda because he can hear out of the hex. He has similar powers to Wanda, just like in the comics. And then Pietro's all chill about this, like, oh, come on, your dead husband can't die twice. Wanda attacks Pietro because he said dead husband, whatever. He has different powers. The powers are blue magic. He can hear out, he can see things in his mind that are happening far away. He can hear voices. Wanda doesn't have this, I don't think. She can implant things in minds. We don't know if he can do that yet. But he does have a little bit different powers than Wanda. So I just think that's very interesting how Tommy just has like Quicksilver speed as far as we know. But Billy has different things, which is cool. So Wanda gets the most powerful we've ever seen her new powers. They look different. She expands the hex. Darcy's caught in it, which means she probably turned into some different character with suppressed memories and grief and guilt. Does she get superpowers? Does her cells change? I don't know. Vision now is safe, which is nice, but then Sword turns into clowns in a circus, which I think is really funny, but that is not as ethical because she kind of changes the personalities and stories completely, and Hayward gets away. Big implications. You guys get pumped for episode 7, but now there's only 3 episodes left. We're really getting into the finale here, guys. What do you guys think is going to happen? I'm so excited. Maybe the hex breaks next episode. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think about the episode in the description or the comments below if you guys actually watch it. I don't really know how many people actually watch these. Whatever. Thank you for watching if you did. Otherwise, see ya.